Hi, welcome to our latest episode of NFTV. I'm Wade Wallerstein, curator at Transfer Gallery, and I'm here with Casey Kauffmann, one of the fabulous artists in Pieces of Me, our exhibition exploring the dynamics of the NFT marketplace. Casey, thanks so much for being here.
Happy to be here.
Casey has contributed to work, which I'll show in just a minute, called Reality Once Removed. And it's my understanding that Reality Once Removed comes from a larger video and collage practice of yours. And I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about this piece, where it comes from, and kind of the wider context of your practice.
Yeah, totally. So this still image is actually taken from a video work that I have made called Knowing Others and Wanting to Be Known. And like all of my work, it's using a collage-based practice to sort of talk about the history of the representation of women in popular culture and art history. Um, and the benefit of collage is that it sort of flattens everything, right? It flattens the line between high and low culture. And really it invites comparison. So I can really talk about, art history and popular culture and see how those things are similar and how they are different. And it's definitely funny. It's definitely supposed to come with a, sort of ironic kind of internet aesthetic kind of sense of humor that we've all gotten used to. But yeah, the whole video is 18 minutes and it's broken up into separate episodes. But in this still image, all of those episodes are once again flattened into a singular image, which really it has this maximalist aesthetic and it makes it so that we can see how overwhelming, online image economies can be, especially, consuming them as a femme identifying person every day. It's a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so many different things happening in here and so many different kinds of representations of different kinds of women. I mean, most notably, we have the Bachelorette from season 16. Kind of, we have every range of her emotional experience throughout the show presented. There's a still of Marina Abramovic, kind of with that single tear heading rolling down her face. And we also have, all of these stock images of women kind of pouring water on their heads. And, I was wondering, this work is so, and of course, how could I forget the Real Housewives? We've got Sonia on there too. And I'm wondering, what about these different kinds of media representations of women speak to you? And how do you want to capture those kind of very specific and framed emotions in your work?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, like first of all, I also draw beyond making digital art, and I've become really interested in the implications of expression, like literal facial expression, especially under the eye of being watched. And that is the nature of the contemporary performance of self, right? It is us being watched, choosing to be watched, consenting to that through like constructs such as reality television and social media. So I'm really interested in how emotion is performed in that line between like authentic and performed self. Um, and I think the really maybe the easiest way to talk about it is every time you like you're mentioning like stock images like Hannah Brown, like all these things, each one of those images has a story for me, so like for Hannah Brown, those images you see of her in the clouds, those are all her reactions to men speaking to her. And that episode really talks about like when you're listening as a woman, that phraseology you use and the faces that you make when you are affirming a man just by how you react to them. So it's like almost this pained smile of her being like, yes, you're smart, I'm listening, you're interesting, yes. um so that's like one side of being watched and performing whatever you conceive as selfhood. And then like this video, one of the episodes that includes Marina, she's compared with Real Housewives. And that really comes from this Amelia Jones essay about the artist is presence. The artist is present and like how there is no real authenticity to be had or presence to be attained when you are being watched. And that goes so well with reality television because it's like this idea of the real self, but it's an impossibility under the watchful eye of the public. Um, so those are just some examples, but really I'm interested in the range of representation and that line between, who am I? How much of me is from what I have consumed? And where does agency lie in our, reactions to one another? Even in daily life when you're not being watched, you always are being watched.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even if you're not being watched as a physical representation, your data representation is being watched and monitored, for any kind of purpose you can imagine. And I this idea of the performance of the self, I think, is so relevant in this moment as NFTs are kind of totally blowing up. And of course, this show is thinking about what it means for us as curators and artists to participate in this new environment. It's a very performative space with shill posts on Twitter and people really big upping themselves. And it kind of, there's almost, a protocol that is expected of you in order to participate in this kind of new marketplace. So I know that you haven't minted a crazy number of NFTs or anything like that, but I'm sure that you've kind of been watching this phenomenon unfold, and I'm wondering how you think about this idea of the performance of the self and the relationship between like what is an impossible true or real self in the midst of kind of this mass wave of folks migrating to places like Twitter to shill their work and to connect with other people and to say, hey, I'm a real digital artist.
Well, you and I have talked about this before, Wade. Like, my professors hate when I say this. So many people hate when I say this, but I'm like the dumbest digital artist there ever was. Like, I'm very much on like the low res. I mean, I make all of my collage work, a lot of it that is still on my phone. So, I'm kind of confounded by NFTs. I really want to participate, but I'm having trouble understanding. And I wonder if other people feel this way too, but it's like, what is so interesting about that is once again, NFTs, the market NFTs, it's very similar to social media and reality television because it's offering itself up as a place of agency, a place of democratization, yet still it is run mostly by tech bros. And it is sort of this circulation within particular circles who understand it. So I do feel like there's just this inherent hypocrisy to it. And that's maybe because it's so new. And I think that a lot of these platforms do try to be a little bit more accessible, but a lot of them you still have to like try out for, and you still have to do it in this really like confounding way. Maybe that's just me, but I think that it's really interesting. It is an interesting space full of potential. And by the way, like, so I have my Instagram practice, which is called Uncanny SF Valley. I've been making digital collages there on my phone for about 6 years. And I got super excited when I found out about NFTs because I've never found a real structure to find compensation for myself. And I think that a lot of digital artists experience that. So there's a lot of opportunity there. And there's a lot of problems with it too, because it aligns itself with the problems that already exist in the art world, of having your work, sent off and sold for a greater price after you sell it. I mean, it's putting something that is already sort of revolutionary, which is digital art and non-object practice, into the same sort of conundrum that object-based practices are experiencing. But shit, I'm just trying to make $1. Like, like I would like $1, just $1. Like,
No,
so
absolutely, absolutely. And I think that's the conundrum that we're all facing. And that was something that really, pushed, Kalani and I at Transfer to make this show was like, okay, as much as this is problematic and performative and, part of this very patriarchal, financial and power structure that exists all around us, we can't deny the fact that people are having success here. And maybe this is a new pathway for are artists who have been underrepresented to gain access. And so like I hope that, you know, we can build something at the ground floor that allows for more positive growth going forward. And so, you know, of course you mentioned that, you know, the space is really led by a very, I don't want to say, you know, I don't want to identify, I mean, it's very masculine. It's a very masculine space. Men are always listed as being the top sellers, as you know, being the most famous. You know, the buyers, the big crypto whales, are mostly identifying as male for the ones who aren't anonymous. And you know, what kind of space is there in the NFT world for femme representation, and how can we carve out a future that is focused on, that is egalitarian, and that actually uplifts those voices that are not a part of the major power structures that really undergird this marketplace.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think that transfer in your, pieces of me is setting forth a great example. Like, you guys are giving all these artists the freedom to approach this exactly as they would. And that is actually egalitarian. That is actually like thinking about, the range of approaches. For me, like, I hope to see more I don't see a lot of like portraiture or like physical representation. And for me, like, it is just so satisfying as a femme identifying artist who talks about like the history of representation to see that out there. And I would really like to see an increase in that, like, instead of like a cartoon cat, like, which I love like cat internet art humor, like, I think that it would be great to actually integrate like the history of conceptual art, like, and the history of representation into these spaces. um I've been really hoping to integrate like my physical work, my drawings and stuff, with like digital practices to make digital pieces to mint. um but again, it's just like a really inaccessible world, at least for me. But yeah, I think that always the answer is to have more women running the show at the top, more people of color, more LGBTQ people at the top. It's like you can't just expect for things to change by all of the artists who are like struggling and submitting work. The people who actually like organize these platforms, venues, and structures need to be of a wider representation. That's always the answer.
Absolutely. I mean, I couldn't agree more. And you know, I think that that's something that, yeah, we really should. We noticeably did not put very many white men in this show. I mean, I say that as a white cis man myself, but you know, we really were thinking about like how we could do that. Your work is so fascinating because it really speaks the native language of the internet and speaks the native language of this particular medium moment. And maybe it connects to me because we're of a similar generation. And so like I can immediately, because I'm native to it, I can immediately understand like what you're saying, like
Yeah.
like as I look at it. And you know, it's interesting. I'm wondering, you know, whether you know you've had any interactions with NFT buyers or collectors or even sellers or other NFT artists who, you know, like I wonder if you've had any feedback from them on your work and how they're kind of relating to this very hyper contemporary visual language that you put forth in your works.
It's so funny. I mean, like, not really. Like, like what I've had happen all the time is literally like maybe like every time I post a new collage on Instagram, someone will comment and be like, "NFTs were made for you," and I'm like, "Really? Where, bitch?" Like, like like I people have been saying that to me since 2019. I wish I had like jumped on the bandwagon more um, quickly. But yeah, like I get the reaction that people really understand that I'm interested in the exchange of images through the internet, and like that is really what this is about. Um, but yeah, I don't have too much interact. Like it just feels like a separate world, It feels like a separate world to the people who've been consuming my work for this long. And what's interesting about like our generation and the work that I make is I almost feel like I'm on a dying planet. I'm on like a dying star. Like, because first of all, like Instagram has been my venue for my work, my platform, and it is dying. As soon as they put, the marketplace where the notifications were, I was like, it's gone. And and then like the culture that I'm interested in, like, Britney Spears, Paris Hilton, like this very 2000s Lisa Frank vibe. I cannot help but always think about that as femme representation because that's the way that I grew up. And I wonder what kind of staying power that has in the future. Does it cycle through culture? I mean, I do see a reprisal of 2000s fashion and iconography, but yeah, I'm just interested to see how this work grows when I have such a specificity to my generation, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I've been seeing that kind of trend exploding like in places like TikTok.
Totally.
I think, for instance, like hashtag bimbo talk has been huge. And there's this whole like amazingly feminist movement that's reclaiming a lot of the ways that those kinds of very pink, very pretty, very Hollywood femme representations and are reclaiming them
Yeah.
in a really meaningful way. And it's a community on TikTok that I've been fascinated by and just so supportive of because I think that it's time, it's time for something that's shiny and pink and pretty to not just be looked at as shallow anymore. And I appreciate your work for kind of shining the light there. Um, I have one more question for you that I've been thinking a lot about in the context of, you were mentioning image exchange and circulation in visual culture. And obviously, the mechanism of NFTs kind of alter or make more, I don't know what's the right word, they kind of make this exchange of images more transactional and also more kind of like concrete and like mutable and like immutable. And, in an internet that was previously based on just the free exchange or just the exchange of information, now that we're kind of putting limits and scarcity to those images and then dealing them, I'm wondering how you're kind of reconciling that in your head and how that's making you feel. I personally have a lot of conflicting feelings. Part of me is like, this is awesome, creators can make money on things that they were not able to make money on before, and people are understanding that scarcity, that things that are publicly available still have value on a personal level. But on the other hand, the idea of continuing to value scarcity kind of makes me nervous. I don't know. How does that make you feel?
Yeah, that is a great question. And I also feel that internal conflict. I think that it's a beautiful thing to provide people an infrastructure for survival. I think that it's really sad when artists are kind of shamed for wanting to survive. Like, I just think it's really unfair. But um, with the continued like shrinkage of the internet, that is the trajectory it has always been on, and the continued path towards a capitalistic structure. That is the nature of these things. Like, you think about Tumblr and the increased parental guidelines and stuff. That was all about the free exchange of images. And as corporate control increases, so does our freedom decrease. So I think that it's the same thing with NFTs and social media that I've been talking about. It's like it presents as democratizing. It presents with this utopic ideology. And then as people see how they can make money off of things and profit off of them, our freedoms slowly shrink. And I've directly experienced this because the way that I get all my imagery is by stealing it online. Like, I am a thief with good composition. That is collage. So I have seen Google image search shrink. I have seen Tumblr, no more dirty pictures for me. Like, there's just so much that narrows as people figure out how to make money off of stuff. And all we can do as artists is continue to question it, continue to subvert those structures, and hope that that makes a difference. I don't know. It would be wonderful for someone to make the perfect platform that upholds its initial utopic ideologies. I don't know what that would look like. I'm not smart enough to do that.
what we're really interested in transfer right now is actually a platform-less future. We don't want no more platforms, and I
Yeah.
hope that's one of the promises that decentralized technologies are kind of offering. And exactly as you said, it's up to us to continue to subvert and to question, and to push this creation into new areas. Um, Casey, thank you so much for being here with me. Thanks for offering your ideas and your wisdom and sharing your work with us. I encourage everyone to, head to her website and watch the full video for knowing others and wanting to be known. It's a really special piece.
And thank you so much for putting together this show and really thinking about it in a really innovative way. I think that it's been an amazing experience for all the artists involved. So I appreciate you.
Yeah, absolutely. Until next time.
Bye.